Numbers are fun. Math is cool. You can make it say whatever you want. Like this graph here, which tries to say that reparations is stupid because only 10% or 15% or 20% or 25% of people own slaves in the South. Those numbers change quite rapidly depending on what graphs you want to look at, but that's a misrepresentation of what actually is going on in the slave-holding states of these United States. They're looking at the number of people who owned slaves, just the person who actually physically owned that paperwork, which is always going to be the head of the household, which then ignores everybody else that's living in the household that's participating directly in the institution of said slavery. So when you look at slavery per household, those numbers start to skyrocket. It's actually over a third of the population owns slaves in that households. And if you go to Mississippi and South Carolina, those numbers are half of the households owning slaves. That's also ignoring the individuals that were to rent or lease or borrow said slaves from slave owners. They're also directly participating in said institution of slavery. You're also ignoring, including those racist bigots up in the North that were directly benefiting from the labor of those slaves. And you might be wondering, where does this idea of 40 acres and a mule reparations even come from? It comes from Sherman on his march to the sea and then his subsequent march through Carolinas. He started confiscating land from Southern planters and then giving 40 acres and a mule of that land to the newly freed slaves. It was not really altruistic of him, though, because it was specifically done so that they would not follow his army, so they would go somewhere else. But that's where the idea of it came from. And then post-war, Johnson, the South-loving hypocrite, decided to give all that land back to the plantations so that now, generations later, they can be on golf courses and you can have wedding venues at them. Right across from mass graves of slaves that were basically murdered, you can get married and have a gayest, rumpus time and just ignore the fact that we have an institution of slavery for generations. And you're going to be like, there's wage slavery and all that other bullshit and blah, 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 blah. Why is anybody okay with this?